welcome. Thanks, folks. We're here to talk about hosting. My name is Rose Young. Well, there's background on who we are, and this is Amber Gardman. And Kaitlin Elnitsky would be here for those of you in Virginia, DC. You know Kaitlin, I love Kaitlin. She actually made the slides for the most part, like 99%. So we got Caitlin's messaging in here, and we are empowered to represent her as well. So we are covering all of First Chesapeake District, although we'll explain in a little while why we are not First Chesapeake. Well, not yet.
Almost there.
You want to go ahead and?
Yeah.
advance?
So, do I just?
Yeah, because she's got a lot of introductions.
How do I?
I
don't
think enter
Just this?
there.
There we go.
Okay,
All right.
so, first of all, we're here to essentially start by telling you why you want to host events, and in particular FLL events, and talk about the programs, things you need to know, the tournaments themselves, the challenge, and for explore. Okay. So, of course, one of the advantages, most of you are with FTC teams, FRC teams, other FLL teams, and you know that outreach includes, and a really important part of it is hosting these events. And these are the awards that, you know, you might want to see that are connected to hosting events. But it also is a great way to make yourself visible to your potential future members for FTC and FRC. And that's one of the, for me, I think that's a really key thing. Get that visibility out there to a really wide audience. Next. It can be a fundraising opportunity. This is where it gets a little complicated between Maryland, DC, Virginia. It's a little bit different. So we're not going in the weeds. Kaitlin will talk to you in DC. I can answer specific questions about Maryland. And Amber's going to talk to questions related to for at least this year and maybe next year. So that varies a little bit, but the thing that isn't different is the community impact. This will have a huge impact. Hosting an FLL event, I don't want to say that there's anything, you know, better about FLL, FTC, FRC. We need hosts for all of them, but the reach that you get from an FLL event can be, I think, much greater, and it hits a very important demographic as well. Okay, so I think most of you need to tell you about the three programs. Anybody have any questions about the three? Okay, let's just go on. Okay, so here's where the interesting part is. Thank you to Kaitlin for putting this together, because it's always difficult to explain. Program delivery organizations, PDOs, are designated by FIRST to manage and implement the programs in different geographic areas. First Chesapeake is the PDO for FRC and FTC in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. So that's easy. It wasn't always that way. We've gotten that way, and we're all used to that. Okay. First Chesapeake will become the PDO only for FLL Explore in Maryland. So Amber, you want to talk about how that happens, or say whatever you want to say about
What
that?
do I want to say about that? Well, currently I am the program delivery partner for FLL Explore in Maryland. I became that when I was first senior mentor. You don't normally wear both hats, but there was no PDP for Explore in Maryland for many, many, many months. And so we had 100 teams with no festival set up, and asking our lovely UMBC challenge partners to start running things for them. And they're like, that's not our mission, right? So I said, as FSM, I'd like to go ahead and take this on and stand up some festivals. So that's how I did that. And so then Chesapeake very kindly took this orphan program, and they're in the process of becoming the partner. They're not quite yet the PDO. I will most likely, again, this is still tentative, but be taking on staying as partner and dropping in for senior mentor. So okay, I can concentrate on that.
There's not enough time to cover this here. I've noticed that there's this challenge explore, but there was a third level too.
Discover.
When I
did
FLL like years ago, I thought there was just the one. Has it changed? And if so, what has it changed?
There used to be 4 programs: FRC, FTC, FLL, and Junior FL.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Then they decided to rebrand this. First does about every year or so, and they put the 2 FLL together under just FLL, and they added the Discover as the third FLL,
Okay.
which is for very young kids, and it's like playing the Duplos, pre-K, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no partner needed for
There's no
that. It's,
No robotics.
it's,
There's no robotics.
it's basically Duplo blocks. Here you go.
So they're covering all ages there, right? And the rebranding is that is all FLL. And that the three levels are Challenge, Explore, Discover, so you have to say FLL Challenge when you mean what used to be FLL, and FLL Explore when you mean what used to be junior FLL.
Okay.
So these two levels do need partners, and JMU, which is who Kaitlin works for, has been and is the program delivery organization for DC and Virginia. Okay, so that's why if you're in DC or Virginia, you talk to Kaitlin. UMBC has been and continues to be the program delivery organization only for FLL Challenge, at least for the foreseeable future, as they have been in the past. I am the program delivery co-partner with Jamie Gerganis with UMBC, although I'm not UMBC staff, like Jamie is on staff at JMU, it's way too much information. But anyway, just to explain why I'm here, but I am contracted to deliver the program as the co-partner. So that's my role. Okay. Now, why are so many of us involved? If it just takes one to do FTC and FRC, you can see kind of from the numbers that it's it's not that it's that many more kids necessarily, because these teams are fairly small, but it is that many more teams that are involved. And it's a fast growing program. Of course, COVID, everything took a hit, things dipped, but the recovery has been right back. Like we're almost right back on track to getting to where we thought we would have 400 teams in Maryland and probably something like 600 in Virginia, DC within a year or two. And so that's a lot of teams to coordinate events and tournaments and communicate with coaches and provide training, provide support. So we'll leave it, it's going to stay divided as far as we can tell with the foreseeable future. Okay, the timelines are different. And now I'm going to talk about FLL Challenge, and Amber can address the schedule, and I think she's got the separate slides for the floor. The tournaments are for Challenge, festivals are Explore. Another change in terminology for those of you who know what an expo used to be, it's a festival. They overlap FTC and FRC seasons. Depending on if you're FTC or FRC and which area you're in, it will determine what the overlap is. So this is one of the considerations is how busy are you if your team wants to do this, you know, looking at the schedule and when those tournaments are needed. Hosts provide a space. So you have a school, you're associated with a church, you're sort of associated with a community organization that can arrange to get a community college or something, a space, but also recruiting volunteers. So those are two of the primary things, and that is not different between Maryland, Virginia, or between Challenge and Explore. Next. The physical space requirements vary. For FLL Challenge, there's obviously more space. FLL Explore, pretty simple. A key thing is getting the teams there. FRC teams and FTC teams don't like to travel, but they do. FLL teams really don't like to travel, and they seldom will. So we try to put opportunities. I mean, we're talking about very young kids. And so it really is important. So if you're interested, but you know that you don't have a population of teams that could get to your event, then probably it's not a good idea to just throw an event out there because it might not be possible to get anyone to go to it. And then that's kind of frustrating from other points of view. So, and that has happened occasionally. So maybe you want to grow some FLL teams. So, which we'd love to have some more. Okay, so what is the timeline? For Challenge, Virginia and DC start much earlier and they will be finished prior to the FRC season, but it's during the FTC competition season, beginning of it. In Maryland, we will start dragging some teams kicking and screaming, 2 events in December. And most of them will be in January, then we'll wrap up in February and have a championship, which is dead on top of the FRC season. Very difficult for FRC to do this, but they do. The space for the challenge is, of course, a place for the competition area with some space for people to watch, some place to set up a pit. And there should also be some place where the kids can eat, and there's food issues, not issues, but you gotta feed the volunteers, you gotta get the teams the ability to have lunch. And of course, judging areas, classrooms, so we're still doing in classroom judging. Okay, it's not just pit judging. In fact, there isn't any for FLL challenge yet. It is a 1-day event, and set up the night before. Yeah.
I have a
Yes.
question. How many fields do you need?
Depends on how many teams you have.
Okay,
So if you're doing a 12-team event, you can do 1 pair of tables, because they're, paired tables. 24 teams, or, sometime 16 to 24, usually we say 2.
okay.
A 32-team event will have 3 typically. Virginia, I don't know if she put this in here, Virginia does divisions based on age, Maryland does not. So it doesn't really change the setup, still the same number of teams, but it does change like the awards and some of the other things later. But I didn't want to get in the weeds of that because that's where there is a difference. And if you know what I'm talking about with divisions, you probably in Virginia or DC, and you know that, and in Maryland, you're going, what?
Thank you.
Okay. Costs. You do need to feed the volunteers. Please. No, I'm serious. The first event last year,
Seriously, somebody forgot.
and this is somebody that had hosted before, didn't make arrangements for lunch. Those volunteers got fed, but it was a difficult process and they had delayed everything, going out and trying to find food. So please feed the volunteers. Reimbursement for that differs, and this is where it gets into very specific things about what your contractor agreement would look like, Maryland versus DC. But that is intended to be covered. What does the PDP do? We will provide things like, I'm sorry, I keep turning that off and it keeps ringing. We will provide the kits, provide access to the tables. We will do different things depending on whether it's Virginia or Maryland. Because as the Virginia folks know, Kaitlin has these trailers she drives around. In Maryland, that's on the host to go pick up things like tables. Okay, because I don't drive trailers. And UMBC doesn't maintain something like that. So there are those differences which you would have to talk to us specifically about. We also we handle all the registration questions about registrations and assignment of teams to events. With sort of an exception in that if you have a team at your school or a team that's associated with you and you want them at your event, they'll be at your event. If you don't want them at your event, then they can be at the event of your choosing, should there be any, no reason that you can't do that. So we do try to accommodate if you're hosting and you have a team, whether you want that team to be there because you'd like to get it all done in one day, or you don't want your team there because you want them to focus on something. I'm talking about your FLL challenge team. We have people that work on doing the scheduling with you. We will train your volunteer coordinator and support that process. Which everybody really loves using the first volunteer system, but we'll help with that. So a lot of training, a lot of support, just answering questions, trying to provide plans, copies of things you need to do, lists, check-ins, have all that stuff. So we're going to be there to try to support it. We do it in slightly different ways, but that's what we do. And I think the next slide is on.
Yep. So the FLL Explore is a different thing, and we do not have competitions, we have festivals. And so festivals are a celebration of the work that the students have done. You do not have judges, you have reviewers. You don't have all long, a whole day. It's like 3 hours for a FLL festival at the most. Every team gets an award. Every student gets a medal. So this is your gentle introduction to the first world, right? So, it's what we really like to do is try and run these in conjunction with an FTC or FRC event, if at all possible, because it's nice for the little ones to see the, what you can do later when you're all grown up in high school and stuff. And it's also nice for, hopefully, the visitors for the large competitions to come and see what these children have been doing as well, and for them to show up. So, like I said, it's a fairly light lift. You do not need competition tables or anything. Each team does need a table to put up their model and their poster. And you don't even need classrooms for the reviewing. The way, I can't speak to the way Kaitlin runs hers, but here, it just, you see them coming in and they've got their model and it's like, somewhat falling apart, and they kind of get it on the table finally, they put it back together and they've got it working and it's running and computer set up, and like the last thing you want to do is say, oh yeah, you're gonna take that classroom down the road, down the hall there, and it's already stressful enough for them sometimes. So you don't even need classrooms for reviewing. You do need one area that's quiet and away from the children to, for the reviewers to get together and decide which team is getting what award. Because again, everybody gets an award. So. Okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of cost. You don't have to feed your volunteers because they're only there for 2-3 hours. We provide medals, the partner provides the medals.
Or ribbons, I
Sure,
think she does ribbons.
No, because I just sent her medals.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so they did these nice big medals. Yeah, so we also handle the registration process. Yeah, it's very cute. They're very cute. And then, of course, we're, got your back the whole, leading up to the event. Questions, providing, templates for like the team packet. So this is where you put the directions to how to get into the facility and sort of thing. So, yeah, so this is a nice way to be able to support the community without, not that FLL challenges are real heavier lift, but if you're haven't never hosted an event before, this is a nice, easy introduction to doing that. So
We do sometimes combine challenge and explore. We used to do that
That's true,
regularly,
too.
challenge and explore at the
Yeah.
same event. But it's,
but our,
no, space is usually the biggest concern.
yeah, I will say like this past year, because I told you I came in kind of late to the thing. It really was just run by FTC teams. Because the way the schedule worked, it was after, because it was after states, a lot of them, so districts, I should say. So they had the time available. And that is kind of that's my favorite model, so I'm going to move forward with that, like FRC and FTC teams to run explore events. It's not like I run them myself and try and get volunteers from the community, so.
Yeah, in answer to the question about if you find out if you're a good candidate, contact the partner. And we can let you know if we already have events in that area. I just spoke to someone who's near someone else that I spoke to, and we can talk about, yes, if we think we would have a greater need in that area, maybe for another event, or if it was on a different weekend, it would work. So we'll try to coordinate. You may know that there are a lot of teams. You may know that you have teams in a school near you. You might know teams that you've seen, or you used to be involved in it and you knew there were still a lot of teams, but you might not know. So in that case, I would say ask the partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's at the end. Or...
I didn't think so, but it might be. Oh, no, there we go. Yeah, so talk to us
There we go.
about, and this is our contact information. Amber's might change, but I think that they'll let you still keep that and get your email there.
Yeah.
So one thing I did want to stress is that as far as the volunteer piece for Maryland, I always recommend having a tournament director and a volunteer coordinator, where the tournament director does a lot of the logistics and the setup and communicates with the teams. And the volunteer coordinator does just that, like recruit, communicate with, and set up the volunteers. They have to work closely together. But sometimes people say, I'll do both. I do not recommend doing both. And I see nods because you've done this before, and you know that if you have through all that communication, it's those really two different things and just coordinating together.
Festivals, you can do both.
Yeah, festivals. You can start.
So it really is, there's just not that many volunteers, and it's typically the volunteers are within your FTC or FRC circle. So, you know, they're fine, and it's just an easier one.
So last year, I don't know, Kaitlin is already well on her way to getting her events lined up. She has a lot of returning events. You may have already talked to her, because you've done one before. I am just starting, I just sent out my survey we had 15 events last year, and looking to get those folks back. And I know 2 that we're adding, so that we'll hear pretty soon about, you know, with a survey of like when and how many teams, and then we'll kind of gear up a little bit. But my deadline to get responses to people is August 1st. So there's still plenty of time to kind of think about it and ask some questions and kind of get on the list for the Maryland events. And we'll try to get that schedule out. We have our coach conference usually mid to late October, because teams keep signing up till then. And if you were paying attention to the Virginia DC schedule, you'll know that gives them like less than 4 weeks that they potentially can be going to an event. So sign up sooner if you're in Virginia DC. And honestly, it's everybody goes, that's what we always tell them. Everybody who's at your event has had the same time since the release of the game. So you know, you're on the same level. And then if you then advance to the championship, you have a little bit more time. It's whenever, you know, your time is there. So, but it is frustrating sometimes to most of the teams in Virginia, and I always have one that tries to sneak over and say, well, can't we just come to one of your events? Because we're not gonna be ready for the Virginia event. And the answer is, yeah. And Kaitlin and I talk. I don't know if they don't know that. I do have 1 team from Virginia and 2 from Pennsylvania that have been moved to our district because they are so far from any other option in their state that it makes more sense for them to be. So they can be transferred into our district. So they are still our teams now, because they're like right on the border. So like 2 hours from any place else. So if you do see a team that's from out of state, that's usually what happens. Okay, any questions?
Questions about the.
Chat.
While you're looking at that, I'll offer one little insight.
Yes, please.
I know I'm talking about the Virginia schedule, but it's been extremely beneficial to have the Explorer events in conjunction with an FTC or an FRC
Right.
Yes.
event, and it just takes a little bit of time, as you said. But then one thing that we do for the kids is we take them all and we have a parade of teams through that FTC event.
Yeah.
And the FTC or the FRC kids go wild and they cheer for them and all that, and they get to see the big robots. We sit them down right up front for a match, so they
That's
see them.
That's lovely.
It's kind of inspiration.
Yes, it is.
Like,
That is a really good thing. And as Amber said, you know, having the kids go and see those big exciting events, it's really pretty cool. The advantage to having the challenge and the sport together a lot of times is you get siblings. That it's
Yeah,
easy on the parents. They can just bring the younger kids because it happens so very often. Oh, what am I gonna do with the younger kid? Oh, I'll start an explore team, right? And so then we can get the whole thing done in one day. We'll just do it all. So,
Plus they can see the next. really
and they see the next
which
level.
is- Yeah.
so either way, it's really nice. In answer to the question on the chat, you're gonna have to ask Kaitlin because I do not have any insight into how her scheduling is going. So any Virginia DC, Maryland had just started and Virginia DC, Kaitlin has that. She actually is at
An explorer.
an Explore event today, but she's not here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but she sends greetings to you all. So, any other comments?
Quick question, are they
Yes.
still using Mindstorm, the EV3?
Yes, it is still, yeah.
Yeah, EV3. Okay, and transitioning.
The next piece of-
Bike prime.
Yeah.
Bike prime.
They're transitioning to the spike system, but you can still use the.
The Spike Like, from what I've seen, it didn't seem same level.
It's.
You have to,
it can
use-
be.
you have to use third party.
It can be, it can do just as well. The ET3 is actually technically the large ET motor has twice the power output as the previous. Like,
Yeah.
you actually have more powerful, so like, you wouldn't, it's fine for FLL. You wouldn't want to mix, if you were gonna do like a sumo bot thing, you wouldn't want to mix ET3s and spikes if you're doing like robot sumo, but that's not an FL. That's not an approved first activity,
Right,
but if you were
Yeah.
doing some other robotic things, you wouldn't want to mix the core. But the, but you know, the people that won the world, I think were spikes.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the spike ones have been, the
Oh, yeah,
last few
they're
years,
pretty
it's been this.
They've been around for
Yeah.
3.
They've been around for
Yeah.
a while. The Funk Spanish team actually, last year got more than the maximum number of points to figure out how to game the game, so they got 415 out of 410.
Wow.
And they used it like.
And they're all probably
They actually
like
figured out that it's
16, 17 years old, right?
they got